How to sew a straight stitch on the Pfaff Select 4.2 in stretch and jeans 6122. You will need pins, a fabric marker, thread scissors, and 2 pieces of fabric approximately the same size. Looking at your pieces of fabric, one side will have bright colors and the other side is dull or white. The bright side is your good side, the dull or white side is your wrong side. Mark the wrong sides of your fabric with an X using a fabric marker. Flip one of your pieces of fabric so the good side is facing you. Then lay the other piece of fabric on top of your first piece so the wrong side is facing you and the good sides are touching. Line up the long edges of the fabric together. Pin the pieces of fabric together along the long edge. Stick the pin through both layers of fabric, then push the pin up through the layers of fabric again so the pins are laying flat. You can either pin the fabric so the pins are horizontal or vertical. Set up and thread your machine. Make sure the stitch length dial is set to 2.5 and the G button is pressed on the stitch regulator. Ensure the stitch width dial is set to 0 and the needle position is in the center. The seam allowance for the sample is 1.5 centimeters. Looking at the needle plate, you want to line up the edge of the fabric that you are sewing with the 1.5 centimeter line. That is the line in between the number 1 and 2. Once your fabric is in place, lower the presser foot. Turn on the machine and start sewing. You want to start your stitches with a backstitch. To sew a backstitch, sew forwards 3 to 5 stitches. Push and hold the reverse switch down and sew backwards 3 to 5 stitches, over the stitches you just sewed. Release the reverse switch and continue stitching forward. Keep your eye on the edge of the fabric to make sure it is still lined up with the 1.5 centimeters line on the needle plate. As you approach the pins, remove the pins so you are not sewing over them. Once you reach the end of the fabric, engage the reverse switch and sew backwards 3 to 5 times. Disengage the reverse switch and sew forwards over your stitches. Once you are at the end of the fabric, stop sewing and make sure the take-up lever is at the highest position. If it isn't, use the hand wheel to move the take-up lever. Lift the presser foot and pull the fabric out and off of the machine. Cut the threads close to the fabric. Trim the tail threads at the top of your stitch line. Turn off the machine and now it is time to iron. You will be ironing the seams open and flat. Lay your sample down, with the wrong side facing you. Open the fabric of the seam, this is where you will be ironing. Once the iron is heated, move the iron over the seam a few times to iron it open and flat. This is how your final straight seam sample should look.